Welcome to Magnus Theatre. My name is Thom, I'm the artistic director here. This is something we like to call Looking Back at Magnus, wherein I have a video call with people who have been significant in the history of Magnus Theatre. Now, in 1971, Burton Lancaster emigrated from the UK, moved to Thunder Bay, and founded Magnus Theatre. Unfortunately, Burton died in the summer of 2019. So today, I'm going to talk to Rebecca Lancaster, his daughter, who was with him all the way along. Here's my conversation with Rebecca Lancaster. Burton chose Thunder Bay to found Magnus, and the reason he founded Magnus was because he wanted to see if he could. And I kind of love that. I kind of, it wasn't anything mercenary. It wasn't for fame and fortune. It seems to me that it was a personal challenge to himself to basically go, let's see if I can do this in a place where there is no professional theater.
I think that was a big part of it. I mean, we'd worked at the Confederation Center, he'd worked back in England, and every established theater company had a sort of way they did things and a board of directors, and he wanted a clean slate so he could do exactly what he wanted to do and see if it would fly. And he had worked a lot with the movement in Britain where you took plays to the people. So they would do plays in small venues, or they'd do it in a local community hall. And that was the late 50s. And it was a very out there kind of movement. And that's what he kind of foresaw here. He wasn't coming to Thunder Bay to, play to the kind of people who already went to the symphony or went to Toronto twice a year to see big productions. He wanted theater to be for everybody, for real people.
Yeah. Were you in Prince Edward Island with your dad as well?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the whole family just up and moved, and then back to the UK, and then back to Canada?
We came to Canada for Expo 67 because my sister had fallen out of the window about 6 months before. And she was very young. She was about 2. I had my 5th birthday in Montreal a week after we arrived for Expo 67. So somebody else had a job with Le Grand Ballet, and he got sick. And he said to my dad, there's this summer job. Do you want to go to Montreal and work with Le Grand Ballet? I can't go. And my dad thought to himself, well, we just had this big shock. I don't know if my little girl will be fine, what the long term is. Let's go to Canada. So we did, and he loved working in Canada. He did the touring show of Carmina Burana with Le Grand Ballet after Expo was done. And then he saw a job at Confederation Center. So we went off to PEI. So our summer in Canada turned into like a year and a half.
Wow.
I love the story about Dad picking Fort Frances and Port Arthur out of a book, because it happened, because it was in our living room and I was sitting right there. I was like 9 or 10, and he opens up one of his encyclopedias with like a map of Canada, and he did all this, hocus pocus over it and stuck a pin in it and said, "Oh, look, it's gone into Port Arthur." And then when he went to the embassy and did all this investigation and research, he found out it had actually become Thunder Bay very recently. But it fit his criteria of to have, at least a professional theater, you need X amount of population and people moving around and exports and stuff. And so it was perfect place. There was so many factors that came together, just that willingness to be there in Thunder Bay and people to be creative. And we drew so many different kind of people to Magnus. It's amazing when I look back at the names and stuff.
The story goes that he arrived in the fall and just started working the town to get this going.
He arrived in the fall. I have 3 little home movies that he took of Thunder Bay, and they're all about 3 minutes each, of just, the view of Thunder Bay from Hillcrest Park and, just that. I remember him doing that and coming home and showing us those. So I think he did one exploratory trip and maybe had seen a couple other places.
Right.
And then he went first and got things going. And I remember we came to Thunder Bay and stayed in a hotel for about a week and then got a place to live. Yeah.
Now, when you first got off the plane, what did you think?
It was kind of a shock to be back in Canada.
Right.
But I mean, we were kids. We went, put us in school right away and we got settled in. I think because we'd been in PEI, we knew what Canadian winters were going to be like.
Right.
I remember some really bad ones. Yeah. And then, just getting stuck in. I think when it was mostly the touring company, we didn't have as much to do with the theater company.
Right.
But once Dad got the Slovak Hall, we were press ganged into all kinds of things like mowing lawns and painting sets and, handing out programs. So there was a lot of volunteering all of my life with theater. But I didn't think it was different. I thought all kids did this kind of stuff. And so I loved that magical time.
Okay.
And the Cambrian Players had a place called The Spike.
That's it. The Spike.
Which was an old hotel and brothel.
Okay.
So one of those, those big wooden buildings where downstairs it was like a moonlight melodrama kind of bar. And then upstairs there would have been rooms to rent.
Okay.
And it had been a house of ill repute at some point.
Wow.
So Cambrian Players was sharing the space with us and letting us build sets there and do administration out of there. But the company was all in the schools and we didn't have a physical space to do performance.
Okay.
And as Dad said, he found the Slovak Hall and then 2 weeks later, the Spike burnt down. So that was the first winter. We sort of came in the fall and got things rolling. And I think by the following fall, we had found the Slovak Hall and things became more consolidated.
The choice of that building, the neighborhood of that building, are huge in the history.
He got a lot of flack for choosing that area, but I mean, there wasn't any other space available at the time that could be a permanent home.
Right.
And it was such a cute little theater. It was actually built as a theater. It had a proper stage and a back end and a fly tower and but people were like, oh, we won't go there. But everybody ended up going there and everybody loved it. Yeah. We hobbled along for a couple of years. When I look at those original programs that I've scanned, it's very little budgets. It's always asking for funds.
Oh, yeah.
I think, for when he was in the East End, most of the local people would come in for the dress rehearsal. Yeah. And a lot of the kids used to sneak in and just watch rehearsals. And as long as they were quiet and good, my dad wouldn't eject them. So I know a lot of the kids who got involved with the young company were just kids in the neighborhood who had been sneaking into Magnus and watching rehearsals and thought this was good fun.
That's amazing.
I don't even know what the occupancy was. Thinking back, internally in my memory, you walked in on one side was a little office, on the other side was the bar area. It was a bit like an old school barn or something. But then thinking, how many people did it sit? Did it sit 100? Can it be more than 200? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great if you have a big stage and you're doing something very elaborate, but when we did the biggest productions like Man of La Mancha, Dad would bring it into the round. He'd put people, the stage in the middle and people around because, you'd want to be interactive.
Yeah.
But, we never did a production that was huge. I think Man of La Mancha was probably the biggest one before we left.
Yeah, I think that's one of his last shows, or he came back the next year to direct something.
Came back the next year when Maurice was there and directed. Yeah.
Right.
No, he wanted to go out with a bang, and he did.
One of the things when he left, and again, the story goes, he decided he was done.
Yeah.
He just kind of thought, well, no, I've done all that I can do. I've proven to myself that I can do this. And then Tibor came in, and
Maurice came first. Yeah.
Came first. Now now just briefly about Maurice Evans, because he's gone now as well.
Yes.
And there's not a lot about him, unlike your dad, because I don't think he had, and this is no disrespect to Maurice, I don't think he had that thirst to be an artistic leader that your dad had. He had a great career as an actor. I know a lot of people who knew him.
Yeah. I don't think Maurice had quite the same training as Dad. I was reading his bio the other day, and he came from a very different place than Dad did. I think he was head of a theater department at a university at some point, and that, that kind of more academic stuff. And I think Dad getting him to be the interim director for a year was like Maurice trying it out to see if it was a role he would like. I don't know if he stayed in that role after he was at Magnus. Like you said, I remember him more as an actor because he was friends with my parents for years. And, I don't know if he was entirely comfortable. He was a good director. He directed The Young Company because I was in it. And we were on the road going to all the parks in John Briley was driving us around in a van and would get cranky at us, yell. But it was a great experience. And we did, some kids shows. And then the culmination was we would do an adult performance with a real director, Maurice, and then, do a performance at the end of the summer.
At Magnus?
At Magnus, yeah.
Okay.
And Maurice had a Lassie dog named Bentley.
Okay.
And Bentley was the smartest damn dog I've ever met. So we were doing the real Inspector Hound, and Bentley would be just like sleeping in the rehearsal. And when we start the beginning of a scene, and towards the end of the scene, the guy pulls a gun, the dog would first start getting agitated. And then as it got closer and closer to the line, she would go to the actor. And when he would try to pull the gun towards the end, she would try to bite his hand to stop him from pulling a gun out. And so, yeah.
Wow.
And Bentley was Maurice's companion for years. The person I'd like to get recognized as much as Dad for Magnus would be Carol Bell. And I was really sad to hear that she had actually passed away before Dad even passed away. She passed away like January of last year.
Right.
So she was a local high school teacher at Hillcrest, but she loved theater and she did so much for Magnus. Like I look in the brochure and, even after being one of the founders and then, helping out with everything, years later, she was back for the fundraising campaigns and, it was a labor of love for Carol Bell as well, definitely.
I think your dad was one of those guys who would walk into the room and go, this room could be a theater, which so many people don't share that vision. What Magnus has become over the years, to where each subsequent artistic director took it, it all goes back to Burton's ultimate vision. Now, did you pursue community theater at all?
I came to Nova Scotia and I worked with Two Planks and a Passion.
Okay.
And I did go to Concordia and get like a diploma in arts administration.
Okay.
But I don't know, having young kids, it's really hard to balance like a theater life and a regular life. So I ended up working in nonprofits and run a small the provincial branch of a national nonprofit, basically.
Oh, great.
But I still love the theater. It still makes my heart sing.
Oh, yeah. Rebecca, thank you so much for chatting with me. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I could talk for hours. Let's keep in touch.
Okay, sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.